Good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Joy News today. Ahead in this bulletin, Information Minister Kojo Oponkrumah dismisses claims the President's directive to the Ministry of Education to engage the GES on the dismissal of 14 WASSCE candidates amounts to interference. Educationists worried continuous criticism and constant interdiction of school administrators and teachers resulting in many reluctance to institute disciplinary actions against students who commit wrongs. In business, government urged to ensure approved supplementary budget is targeted at areas that can revive the economy. My name is Daniel Dazi. Welcome. Nkrumah is refusing claims that the President's directive to the Ministry of Education to engage the Ghana Education Service on the dismissal of 14 WASSCE candidates amounts to interference. The Ghana Education Service dismissed 14 WASSCE candidates who filmed themselves insulting the President over the difficulty they had in tackling questions in the ongoing examination and barred them from writing the papers this year. The President, however, believes the punishments should not halt the candidates' education. Here's Information Minister Kojo Oponkrumah speaking on Prime Morning on Joy Prime TV.
I think it's totally uncalled for. I think the kids must be disciplined, and like the President has hinted at the Minister responsible for education, disciplining them does not mean curtailing their opportunity to, complete the examination and move on. But I think we also maybe at some point need to do some introspection and study a bit more to see whether or not the kind of regime that we are providing this new generation of kids with is affecting how they observe things in any way, or whether this is an isolated incident that would have happened anyway. I think there's a reason for which you have the tiers, so that when the appointed official makes a decision and it requires somebody else who is on a daily basis also connected with the broader population to take a second look at it, that second look is taken. What is important is that you don't see, for example, the President say, don't do this or don't do that. But if you read the President's instruction, he has directed the Minister responsible for education to go back and engage with the Ghana Education Service with a view to achieve something. And I think it strikes a good balance. We must allow these kids, and the President is a very compassionate person. If you have an opportunity to engage with him some more, apart from sometimes what you see in the headlines, you will notice that he's a very compassionate person, and he believes that, yes, discipline them, but don't curtail their opportunity to write the examination and have a life. That's the whole essence of what we're doing.
Still on the subject, educationists are worried that the continuous criticism and constant interdiction of school administrators and teachers in recent times are resulting in many of them reluctance to institute disciplinary action against students who commit wrongs. Executive Director of the Institute for Education Studies, Peter Enti, says, while protecting students against molestation and abuse is paramount, the Ghana Education Service needs to empower teachers to play active roles in students' discipline and character development. He was speaking on the AM show.
It's a little challenge in the senior high schools, and we engage these teachers a lot. And one of the things we have come to learn is that the teachers now they apply this thing they call teach and leave. Teach and leave meaning that whatever happens within the school system, which has got nothing to do with the teacher's classroom instruction, or that will prevent him from undertaking his duty as a teacher in the school, the teacher does not want to be involved in. And that is simply because along the line, we saw some of the teachers going overboard with carrying out these punishments that are supposed to be meted out to the students. And because of that, Ghana Education Service and the requisite institutions came in and punished these teachers. Now, in the event of communicating to the general public and the students that teachers have a limit to which they can carry out these punishments, I think the communication went bad. And what the general public and the student picked was that teachers cannot do or cannot instill discipline in our students. Now, because of that, parents whose students have gone through certain kinds of punishment have come out to even sometimes condemn these teachers. The Ghana Education Service itself, sometimes when teachers have gone overboard, have come out to punish these teachers. And these have sought to reduce the mandates of the teacher in instilling discipline to the student. And that is why in most of these campuses, teachers will not want to talk about student issues when it comes to they going overboard or they showing signs of indiscipline. And that is why we are suggesting that we should, as a matter of urgency, look at our whole disciplinary issue or framework in our senior high schools, because it is important, and make it clear that the teacher still holds the key to ensure discipline in our schools. We should make it clear that the teachers still, we should make it very clear, and I have to repeat this point, that we should make it clear that the teacher is still mandated to instill discipline in the child, not in a way that will physically harm the student or psychologically harm the student, but in a way that will reform the students in a positive light. I think that's a conversation that we need to have. And if you're able to do this well, I'm hoping that going forward, we'll be able to get students that are well trained and fit into the society that we are living in.
Now, the intervention of President Akufo-Addo and the dismissed 14 students in some senior high schools mean they can continue sitting for the rest of the papers in the ongoing WASSCE. And in the discussions, Mr. Nti and the Executive Director of Child Rights International said the intervention was in the right direction.
Carefully gone through the letter, and I feel that all that the president did is to ask his appointee to have engagement with a statutory body to see how best they can deal with the matter. So from that point of view, I think that it is not like the president is seeking to usurp the powers of Ghana Education Service, but rather to make appeal to Ghana Education Service to reconsider the decision that they've taken. And the president also went further to say that, at least from his point of view, he thinks that the dismissal is enough punishment to serve as a deterrent. So clearly there are issues that the president raised. But even on the issue of dismissal being used as a means of punishing them, I personally have some issues with it. But at the end of the day, what we seek to achieve has to do with the fact that the student will be given the opportunity to write their exams, because from our point of view, we don't think that Ghana Education Service do have the power to deny children the right to write the exams. And the statement of the president and also that of the NAT and other organizations point to the fact that that decision was harsh. For that matter, they have to soften it, and they have listened. And I know Sunday, a lot of discussions went on, so I'm hoping that this morning, the students will have the opportunity to write their exams.
Now, the Greater Accra Regional Hospital has suspended 2 of its staff for engaging in what it describes as administrative malpractices. Hospital authorities say the incident is capable of tarnishing the hospital's image. According to a statement issued by the hospital, 2 officers were caught by the BBC's investigative team, Africa Eye, selling personal protective equipment, PPEs, belonging to a private individual within the premises of the hospital. The statement says, as a hospital, it does not encourage this behavior since it may adversely affect its output and also be misconstrued by the public as items belonging to the facility. The suspended officers are Thomas Osei, Medicine Counter Assistant, and Divine Kumoji of the sewing unit of the hospital. Thomas Osei is serving a 2-week suspension without salary for inappropriate and unauthorized sale of PPEs on the hospital premises, and Mr. Divine Kumoji as well. Now, the statement, Mr. Divine Kumoji, the statement said would refund all monies realized with regards to unauthorized and inappropriate sale of face masks on the hospital premises. He's also serving a 2-week suspension without salary. Dr. Emmanuel Strofenyo is medical director of the hospital and joins us via Zoom. Dr. Srofenyo, good afternoon. Now, the investigative piece you talk about will be broadcast today. So on what basis have you taken this decision?
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your listeners. I want to say that I thank you for inviting me to clarify this issue. The basis is that these officers we have been communicated to by the BBCI team as to what they found from their secret cameras. And then immediately this information got to us, we set up an investigative committee that went into detail to find out the circumstances surrounding their behavior, what they did, and so on and so forth. And it came to light that when they were approached, they went to town and purchased PPEs from some dealers and brought these materials to the hospital premises and sold. For us, we accuse them of the fact that this is a private business that they are engaging in, but this should not be done in the premises of a public institution, because this is a public institution. People might construe that to mean that, yes, they were siphoning from the hospital stock. When we investigated the hospital stock, all donations and then the PPEs that the hospital itself has bought are all intact, and that this one was brought from outside. And indeed, we went ahead and even contacted the dealers outside, and it engaged. It's actually confirmed that they bought the PPEs from outside. However, for doing what they did on the hospital premises, we have brought them to book, and that is why we have suspended the two of them for a period of 2 weeks, during which they will lose their salaries. And the other person was also to lose all the revenues that he got from this will be taken away from him. Thank you.
Why is it just one person who is refunding the revenue?
It is because that other person, because he works in sewing room, he claims that he used the hospital, he claims that he used his own materials and then his own spare time. But this is something that we were unable to confirm, whether it is his own material or not. And that is why we decided that we would take every revenue that he realized away from him. But for the other one, we have the evidence clear and cut that he got it from outside, and that he actually paid, receipted, and the company's name, registered company, and all that. So for him, his crime is that he did a personal business on public institution premises. And so that is why we have some differences in the punishment that has been meted out to them.
Help me clarify this, Dr. Srofenyo. So for Divine Kumoji, he claims he sold the PPEs himself.
Yes.
With what material?
He claims he sold the PPEs himself with materials that are left over. That is what he claimed. Materials that are left over from what the hospital itself has done. You know, in the event of this pandemic, one thing that the hospital has done was that we engage our sewing room staff to sew cloth face masks for the staff to use. And we so designed them in such a way that they are peculiar to what Rich Hospital uses. And so definitely in situations like the leftover cloth pieces are left, and he is saying that he gathered those ones and used his own spare time on weekend to sew them, and that is why he sold. And the investigation has also proven that, yes, those are the materials that he used. However, for doing what he did and using leftover cloth from the hospital without any official permission, that is why management has taken the decision that whatever amount of money that is realized from this will also be taken away from him.
Forgive me, Dr. Srofenyo, is he not stealing from the hospital? This is material that could clearly have sewn new face masks, and the hospital procured for the intention of sewing face masks, and he made his own face masks and sold them. Is it not stealing?
Yeah, so there is a malpractice there. That is, even if you are picking leftover materials to put together, you still need a permission. You still have to ask permission from the unit in charge and also from the head of the department. And so for not doing this, that is why we regarded this as a malpractice.
Are we handing over the case to the security services? Is the police going to look into this?
Yes, after the investigations, Ghana Health Service has its own code of conduct and disciplinary measures. So normally after investigation like this, we submit them to the dictates of the Code of Conduct and disciplinary measures. And this has been duly done. The particular error that was committed, the punishment that you need, that has to be meted, is also prescribed by the Ghana Health Service Code of Conduct. And that is what we did. If further investigation show a criminal intent, then the police will duly be informed.
Dr. Ashrafenyo, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon on Joy News Today.
Thank you also.
Away from that story, the police have intensified investigations into violent clashes between the supporters of the NPP and the NDC at Nkran Kwanta in the Doma West district of the Bono region, in which one person died. Public Relations Officer for the Doma West District's Chief Inspector Augustine Kingsley Opong tells Joy News, whilst calm has been restored, the police are still monitoring the situation.
They were fighting each other. You will not be able to denote between NPP and DC. So police tried to stop and bring peace, but nobody will listen. Due to this, some men were called to come and add to the policemen and military who were there. And, you know, when we have a situation like this, we have what we call graduation force. You start talking and then you increase the situation as per how you repel those people who are involved in that. It led to the using of rubber bullets to disperse the people. It was after they have all run away from the place that we realized there was one guy who was lying there with people around, helped the police to take him to the hospital. And it was at Doma Hinkru Presbyterian Hospital that the doctor declared him dead on arrival.
So he died as a result of a bullet wound from...
We are suspecting that it's a bullet wound.
From the police
that
from...
That will come out when we establish an investigation to find out some aspect of the things that went wrong there.
Were any of those engaged in the violence armed?
Yes. We overheard shooting, sound of weapons from those who were running away. So it means that some of them were armed.
Have you made any arrests so far?
Yes. So far we have arrested 3 persons who are assisting police for our investigation.
Are you able to...
now at Doma Divisional Command.
Now, the victim has been identified only as Kofi Stephen, and 2 other people who are said to have sustained gunshot wounds are currently receiving treatment at the Doma Hinkro Presbyterian Hospital. The incident is said to have occurred at the Doma West District Office of the Electoral Commission Saturday during the mop-up of the voters' registration exercise. Both parties blame each other for the incidents. Both Deputy NDC General Secretary Bernice Sewa Samwa and Doma West MP Ali Maiga Halidu spoke to Bernice Abubedu a while ago.
For now, I understand one of our people was also hit by a stray bullet. He is receiving treatment at the hospital now. We have spoken to our people and then calm has returned to the place. We expect that the police will take over, do a thorough investigation and bring the perpetrators of this heinous act to book. We don't like the situation where they will keep investigating and then nothing happens and then the people are emboldened to continue acting. We as a political party are going to put together all of these incidents and we are going to follow up to make sure that whoever created the problem is brought to book by the police.
Are you looking at probably putting in mechanisms within your party on how some of these matters at the district level are reported and amplified to the national level, so your members at the grassroots do not resort to violence when they have issues like this?
Most definitely. We have always spoken to our people to always remain calm because these are armed attacks. And we cannot arm our people. And so we have always spoken to them to remain calm. The national executive will take it up. Yeah, like I said, we are compiling all the cases of shooting and whatever that has taken place in all the various polling stations, registration centers, and we are going to make sure that we collaborate with the security agencies so that they will take up the issue and do their work. Once the people are assured that the security agencies will bring the perpetrators to book, I am sure that they will not take the law into their own hands.
Away from that story, the opposition National Democratic Congress is asking governments to immediately render accounts for monies collected by the Power Distribution Services PDS in its 7 months of operation from March to October 2019. National Communications Officer of the party, Sammy Gymafi, says persons who were complicit in the fraudulent power pact, which was terminated under questionable circumstances, must be made to cough out all the monies back into the coffers of the state.
Contrary to the effort of Ghana's parliament to protect the public purse, and in order to safeguard our interest in the concession, the Akufo-Addo government shamefully conspired to bend the rules for PDS by changing the key requirement of a bank guarantee to a less liquid instrument, an insurance guarantee, thereby jeopardizing the assets, the over 20 billion cedis assets, worth of assets of ECG. Ladies and gentlemen, this infamous and nation-wrecking decision was taken by high-ranking government officials, including the Vice President of the Republic, Dr. Bawumia, represented President Akufo-Addo at a meeting at the Jubilee House on 19th February 2019. Pursuant to these scandalous amendments by the Vice President, Dr. Bawumia, the Finance Minister, cousin to President Akufo-Addo, Ken Ofori-Atta, and the Esom Benjamin-led MIDA, PDS subsequently provided an insurance guarantee with dubious validity to ECG, as same was ascribed as fraudulent by Akut, a Qatar-based reinsurance company, which purportedly issued the said insurance guarantee. Ladies and gentlemen, according to the FTI investigative report on this matter, which was commissioned by MIDA at the instance of the US government, crucial advice from Ghana's own financial advisors on this transaction for the necessary due diligence to be done before the said insurance guarantee was accepted by the Ministry of Finance and ECG, and the assets of ECG handed over to PDS was ignored. In short, the over 20 billion assets of ECG were handed over to a fraudulent company called PDS by the Akufo-Addo government on 1st of March 2019 on the basis of a fraudulent insurance guarantee. It is worthy of note that under the guise of promoting local content, 51% of the shares in this fraudulent company PDS were allotted to companies belonging to friends and cronies of President Akufo under very shady circumstances, in furtherance of his state capture agenda.
The NDC also stated how their flag bearer, John Dramani Mahama, will not be a clearing agent for corruption.
As President Mahama has already announced, when he is given the opportunity to serve this country again on 7 January 2021, inshallah, he shall wage a ruthless war against corruption in all sectors of our nation through an anti-corruption crusade dubbed Operation Sting. Ghanaians can be rest assured that under the Operation Sting crusade, the next NDC Mahama government shall ensure that all monies Here I'm referring to the over 1.5 billion Ghana cedis revenue PDS collected from the people of this country. President Mahama will ensure that all these monies collected by PDS from electricity consumers are properly accounted for and ensure the retrieval of any amounts misappropriated by the company, their promoters and accomplices for the state. Also, the next NDC Mahama administration shall ensure the arrest and criminal prosecution of all persons who directly or indirectly played roles in this stinging PDS scandal and the other several corruption scandals we have witnessed under the watch of President Akufo-Addo in the last 3.5 years. As President Mahama has demonstrated, or as President Mahama demonstrated between 2012 and 2016, when he ensured the prosecution of his own appointees and party members in the youths who were found culpable in some corruption scandals. President Mahama will not be a clearing agent of corruption in the next NDC government.
Now, the New Patriotic Party, NPP's parliamentary candidates for Damongo constituency, Abu Jinapo, has donated a fully furnished new ambulance to the chief and people of Busunu electoral area in the West Gonja municipality of the Savannah region, with an appeal to them to consider the progress and development of the traditional area when voting in this year's general elections. According to Mr. Jinapo, the people of Damongo constituency are awakened and are asking for politicians of progress and development, hence for the presentation of the ambulance to facilitate healthcare.
The people of Damongo constituency are awake. They are asking for politicians of progress and of development. And it is in that spirit that I come to Busunu, to my Lord Busunura and his people, to present an ambulance to them to facilitate healthcare so that we can have a meaningful healthcare for the people of Busunu. In these elections on December 7th, the people of Busunu and Damongo are going to vote for progress, they are going to vote for development, they are going to vote for forward march, and they are going to vote for jobs and for employment and for agriculture. Thank you.
Back to Accra, and the Ghana Chamber of Telecommunications has said that they will be making presentations to the Communications Committee of Parliament in response to that revelation made by the Minister for the sector, Esther Ekufuor, on Friday, that there has been some suspected under-declaration of taxes to the tune of 770 million Ghana cedis. Ken Ashigbe spoke on Prime Morning this morning on Joy Prime TV.
Our position is just the same as we did 9 months ago, that these things have not been brought to our attention. And we think that it is important for the image of brands like ours, who take their tax obligations very seriously, who take their revenue assurance very seriously, that these things, before they are brought in the open, it should be brought to our attention. We should discuss it like should be done before any public pronouncements will be made.
So now the public pronouncement has been made. Right, the public pronouncement has been made. What is the next step for your organization? Will you be engaging the Ministry of Communications?
Well, as I said, the first time we wrote to the GRA and copied the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Communication. But now, it's not just a public a press statement that was done, or a press release, or a press conference, but this has gone to Parliament. And Parliament, is a house of records. So we would also be seeking audience through the Parliamentary Select Committee on Communication to be able to state our case, so that when the records are taken, what we have said would also come in place.
That's all live on Joy News today with me, Daniel Dazi. Up next is Business with Daryl Kwao.
Hi, good afternoon and welcome to Business. My name is Daryl Kwao. Economist Professor Peter Quartey is asking government to ensure that they approve supplementary budget for this half of the year is targeted at areas that can revive the economy. In an interview with Joy Business, he implored on government to avoid wastage.
Should also spend reasonably. I don't think you go for the law to be amended and then you spend like 15 or 20% of GDP. No, that is irresponsible behavior. But if it is able to, now it says about 11.4% of GDP, and which is still within the projections for the Sub-Saharan African average. If we're able to stay within 10, 11, 12%, that is okay, because we are not in normal times. And in these times, you find money to spend and revive the economy. Not just give money to people, put money in people's pocket. You also have to grow the productive base so that it doesn't become inflationary. But in these times, we are not in normal times, and one certainly has to spend. That is why the UK Prime Minister said, build, build, build. They are going to pull down and build and build. When we are building, you are putting money in the economy. You are employing people, and that can help turn the economy around. If ours is roads, we need roads. Let's construct roads as much as we can. Find cheaper sources of finance and construct the roads.
The Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, Professor Augustine Fosu, is warning suspension of the Fiscal Responsibility Act could negatively affect the country's credit rating. Parliament approved the suspension of the rules for 2020 based on the COVID-19 pandemic, which has caused a budget deficit of more than 5%. Professor Fosu believes government may have to do a lot more to convince the credit rating agencies about its commitment to fiscal prudence.
I think that so far Ghana has done quite well in terms of meeting the fiscal responsibility targets. Before COVID, we were actually moving quite close, around maybe 63%, and it was targeted to be met, actually. So COVID came along, and the target now cannot be met, no doubt about that. So as I indicated earlier, by 11 percentage points above the target to 76% of GDP. So we have to justify to the rest of the world that indeed COVID-19 is responsible for this difference. Otherwise, we can have adverse effects on the economy in terms of the interest rate premium that we have to pay in the capital market. And that, of course, means that there will be less funds available for capital expenditures, for various programs, including free SHS, and so on. It is quite critical that whatever funds that are utilized to meet the difference, to make up the difference, that those funds are utilized efficiently.
In other news, the State Interest and Governance Authority has justified support from the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, GNPC, to government institutions and other firms in the name of corporate social responsibility. According to the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, GNPC last year spent $645 million to support some state institutions. PIAC warns the support outweighs GNPC's total equity financing expenditure, and has called on Parliament to cap its expenditure. But Director General of the State Interest and Governance Authority, Stephen Asamoah-Boateng, does not think that these concerns are well placed.
The Chief Executive Officer, Dr. K.K. Sapon, has managed their resources very well, especially in the face of exploration of new oil fields. You know, the Volta Basin had gone on, and some other areas of work was being done. I mean, there was no cutback on those areas. But when COVID hit, corporate social responsibility, it's something that the company themselves have undertaken. The board has agreed that they should do some work within the local community. It's not something that is compulsory and it has to be done because it's by law. But it's good to do good things in the community. It's part of effort to help central government. But once they realized the impact of COVID, they realistically came down from 55 to 35, which is still not bad. I mean, 35 million Ghana cedi. And I know they've already started some projects already. I saw a project in the north with one of the, I think Dominic Dua was commissioning a project in the north. So they are carrying on, and it's not as bad as we thought. And that shows that they are prudently managing their resources, which is good for me, and I commend them for that.
And we've got a full bulletin coming up at the top of the hour on the marketplace. Do stay with us. The news continues after this break.
Here on Joy News today, now a twist of sport. Newly appointed CEO of Kumasi Asante Kotoko, Nana Yaw Amponsah, says that he's determined to restore the fortunes of the club. Now, the young football administrator is eager to make Kotoko great again. There's more in the following Joy Sports report.
The name on the lips of every Asante Kotoko fan now is Nana Yaw Amponsah, the man who has been brought in by the board of directors to change the fortunes of the club. Last Friday, he was officially unveiled as the CEO of the Porcupine Warriors. Among other things he talked about was the fact that Asante Kotoko is bigger than any political party in the country.
Asante Kotoko for now is the biggest club in Ghana, no doubt. And for me, it's about the third biggest in Africa in structure. But unfortunately, same cannot be said of its content. I'm here to help the board and the entire Kotoko fraternity to match this superstructure with befitting contents. I dare say that Asante Kotoko is bigger than MPP and NDC. Asante Kotoko transcends geographical boundaries. Kotoko is a culture. The joy this club gives its teaming supporters cannot be matched by any political party in Ghana. I therefore plead with you to give me double of the support that you give your individual political parties of choice, and you will make Asante Kotoko great again.
Nana Yaw Amponsah is known as one of the presidential candidates for the last GFA elections. As someone who distinguished himself very well during the campaign period, he's looking at taking Kotoko to the next level.
Every mighty building was laid brick by brick. If you think of it as a whole, it appears impossible to achieve. But if you look at it in terms of brick by brick, then you know that it is very achievable. If you hire a mason to put up a building for you, you have to do all you can to ensure that you give him the support to put up a very good edifice that will last generations to come. Otherwise, when it's done and leaves one day, you will be the one living in that building. You must give me all the support I need so that I can help build an edifice that will go beyond boundaries.
Nana Yaw certainly has the ideas and looks to make the club great again. He has received the backing of former management member Dr. Kwame Baniako to succeed.
I'm thanking the board on behalf of Nana Yaw. It's not always that you get these big guys, older men, entrusting a big club like Kotoko in the hands of a young man. But the future belongs to the youth. And the board believes that with a young man at the helm of affairs, they will be able to achieve the targets that they are setting for the club.
For Kojo Adai-Mensah, a follower of the club for decades, Nana Yaw's appointment is in the right direction and believes the club will do a good job.
I'm glad for him. I know he's capable. There have been all sorts of stories around him and his appointment. I honestly wish him a lot of luck and a lot of goodwill and a lot of everything.
Support from the fans for Nana Yaw is crucial. Kotoko has a massive following and their fans are passionate about the club. Here are views of some of them.
All we are expecting from him is to make Kotoko great and the whole of Ghana football great. And then also our league, it looks like people are not going to stadium. So whatever they will do to get people coming, I think that is what we are expecting.
Well, I expect his administration to work well, because the previous administrator, they've done their best, but since he has come on board, I think he should also change the system of the team. Well, since Autumn 4 have chosen him to become the CEO, I think he has the capacity of managing the team, and I think what I expect him to do is to either buy new players and change the team's system, because we need a better team to go to the continental tournament.
Well, that's it for sports for now. But of course, there's a bigger dose later when I bring you Sports Today at 2 p.m. Meanwhile, Joy News Today continues. Showbiz is up next. My name is Nathaniel Atto, and I have love for sport.
And this is where we end today's bulletin of Joy News Today. My name is Daniel Dazi. Thanks so much for joining us. Up next is the marketplace. But we'll be back tomorrow with another Joy News Today. Enjoy.